Washington, D.C. It is March 4th, the year 1913. President William Howard Taft. On this, his last day in office, President Taft carries out the will of the Congress of the United States. Acknowledging the condition of workers in this growing nation to be of public concern, a new department of the federal government is created, charged with a solemn mission to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the United States, to improve their working conditions, and to advance their opportunities for profitable employment. Wage earners, working conditions, employment opportunities, human labor purchased at cattle car prices and set to the dreary routine of tending steam-driven machines. Still they came, the tired, the poor, the tempest-tossed, drawn by a vision of plenty and the fact of personal freedom. These were among the department's first clients. The millions of immigrants who had fled the futile servitude of an old world, only to be trapped in the industrial ghettos of a new. Everywhere, workers' attempts to better their lot met with violence and legally sanctioned resistance. Unions and the lives they represented were often wrecked in battles of a different kind of American Revolution. But now, these working men and women had a voice in the President's highest council. The resources seemed few. One bay horse named Mike, one wagon, a handful of dedicated people. 15, for example, in the Women's Bureau, and 94 in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But they were enough to document the social and economic ills of a raw industrial society. Within a year, Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot down by a Serbian patriot, and the greatest war the world had known exploded in Europe. The Secretary of Labor remarked in 1917,
"Battles are fought not only between armed men, but between the factories, workshops, and mines of the contending nations."
His department, acting as the War Labor Administration, helped to see to it that this war was not lost on that front. Employment services to man the war effort, a women's land army, child labor laws, minimum wages, an 8-hour day, acknowledgement of workers' right to organize. By war's end, a new industrial society had emerged, one made in a modern image, one made through changes the department had urged and administered. From now on, crisis would underline the department's central role in social progress. Now it faced the challenges of the newly unemployed, the need for reconversion in a world assured of perpetual peace. Within months, 400 employment service representatives would offer assistance to employers and employees, farm workers and factory workers, skilled and unskilled. The high, wide, and handsome 1920s brought undreamed of prosperity. The then Secretary of Labor declared,
"The material progress of America is one of the most astonishing things recorded in the annals of nations. Our wealth is 40% of the entire wealth of the earth."
There was some problem, of course, in its distribution. The United States, which had saved the world for democracy, was a land of unlimited optimism and confidence. But beneath this surface of well-being, profound changes were taking place. While the fever of speculation pushed Wall Street's temperature to the boiling point, America's wage earners were bringing home dollars worth less and less. In an era of union busting, union membership was declining. The Child Labor Act was declared unconstitutional, a nicety of judicial interpretation lost on children in the mills and in the mines. And for the first time, a strange new concern, technological change, entered the reports of the Secretary of Labor.
We shall be paying too dearly for the prosperity of a few if machines become so efficient as to impoverish the many by keeping them unemployed.
Troubles? Yes. But nothing a prosperous nation could not take in its stride. Throughout its more than 50 years, the Department of Labor has been served by thousands of men and women who have shared the belief that America the Beautiful can be more than the title of a song. The inventory has come a long way from a bay horse named Mike and a stack of books. But the attitude hasn't changed, nor has the name of the job: to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the United States. Having known change and helped make it, the Department of Labor does not find in change a stranger nor an enemy. It is rather another name for opportunity. The Department of Labor's 5,000 employees engaged in labor management mediation, fact collecting, making studies and recommendations to improve the lot of working men, women, and children. Wage earners of the nation could appreciate the work of the department in the light of the Secretary's judgment.
Booms and panics were once regarded as an order of nature. We do not now believe this to be true. We believe it is within our own hands to wipe out depression and make prosperity permanent.
Within the year, 3 million Americans are ex-wage earners, unemployed, and the ranks of the unemployed ought to soar to 15 million. 5,000 banks shut their doors to depositors now in greatest need of their savings. Many would never reopen. Private construction virtually ceases. Mills and factories shut down. Railroads come to a virtual standstill. Millions of Americans, men, women, and children, wait in the cold, on bread lines, in soup kitchens. The fortunate are on relief. The lucky work for an average of $3 a day take-home pay. The 31st President of the United States takes his oath of office.
Our greatest primary task is to put people to work. This is no unsolvable problem if we face it wisely and courageously. It can be accomplished in part by direct recruiting by the government itself, treating the task as we would treat the emergency of a war.
Once again, if there was not now a Department of Labor, its need would be desperate in these desperate times. Empowered by Congress, the Department of Labor sets up emergency national employment offices. Based upon a department study, the Secretary of Labor recommends
some form of unemployment reserves should be set up now to take the place of bread lines. It should be an honorable method of tiding over people who won't work and lack it.
The President appoints the Secretary of Labor to head a committee to develop a national Social Security program which shall embrace and cover the hazards of old age, unemployment, the handicapped, and children. There follows the most comprehensive effort to improve working conditions ever undertaken by any nation. The Social Security Act and the Wage and Hour Act. Both originating in the Department of Labor, established for the first time in history a decent minimum wage and security in old age. Unemployment compensation to replace the breadline, the charity handout, the dole. Maximum hours of labor. A law to outlaw child labor. And the Magna Carta of wage earners of the nation, guaranteeing all employees the right to organize and bargain collectively through representatives, free from interference, restraint, or coercion. Single strikes get headlines, but hundreds, even thousands of strikes that never happen, thanks in large measure to dedicated personnel of the Department of Labor, never make the front page. Throughout its more than 50 years, the Department of Labor has been served by thousands of men and women who have shared the belief that America the Beautiful can be more than the title of a song. The inventory has come a long way from a bay horse named Mike and a stack of books. But the attitude hasn't changed, nor has the name of the job: to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the United States. Having known change and helped make it, the Department of Labor does not find in change a stranger nor an enemy. It is rather another name for opportunity. War clouds loom on the horizon. Again, unrestrained aggression is to engulf this nation. Again, the immediate challenge of survival. Men in uniform, men and women to make the uniforms, machinists to make the guns and ammunition, auto workers to produce the jeeps and trucks, to build the ships and tanks, civilian soldiers to turn out the fighters, the bombers, and the bombs. Troop trains and trainloads of food for ourselves and for our allies. Again, the urgent need. And again, the Labor Department's contributions help to set records of uninterrupted war production unequaled in the history of this or any other nation. Victory achieved, the nation once again faces the inevitable cycle of boom and bust. World War II behind us, the problems of peace lie ahead. Millions of wartime workers looking for different jobs in other industries. Millions of others who had seen enough of the world coming home to settle down to a nice job and a nice girl, including those who had given far more than their time. The Department of Labor's employment and reemployment programs eased the way for most. Making a new world, even a peaceful one, can be painful too. For almost 5 years, American workers kept their pledge not to strike while wartime profits soared. Now the balance began to right itself. The department's mediation service had the busiest year in its history. Wage and price controls come off, and the department's consumer price index, the cost of living, goes into a vertical climb. 1949. The first of 4 post-war recessions reopens the question of unemployment, a word seldom heard in a decade. At a time when employment reaches 60 million, a figure once ridiculed as visionary. Unemployment is heard again at a time when the Department of Labor, shorn of its immediate post-war duties, loses many of its long-time helpful functions as well. Once again, crisis restores them. It is increasingly apparent that crisis and challenge are parts of the continuing price of growth. Throughout its more than 50 years, the Department of Labor has been served by thousands of men and women who have shared the belief that America the Beautiful can be more than the title of a song. The inventory has come a long way from a bay horse named Mike and a stack of books. But the attitude hasn't changed, nor has the name of the job: to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the United States. Having known change and helped make it, the Department of Labor does not find in change a stranger nor an enemy. It is rather another name for opportunity. But with the seeming suddenness of a missile's flight, we are thrust into the age of a scientific revolution. The age of space. It is a time in which wonder grows weary at the commonplace of miracles. And in which hope strides forward in 7-league boots, hastened by the knowledge that modern technology can bring an end to hunger, illiteracy, chronic ill health, drudgery, unemployment, and material want. Man has probed to the very heart of matter and turned it to energy. But all of technology is not a net gain. We have not probed deeply enough into the heart of economic life. Automatic equipment can produce more goods faster, but it lays off the unskilled. Computers and electronic mechanisms demand workers of exceptional qualification. Others need not apply. New production methods turn over entire labor forces, empty out old factory towns. Caught in a squeeze between falling demand and rising productivity, many workers go the way of the one-time farmhand, now a vanishing America. This man's name is now only a footnote to history. Over 100 years ago, he invented a sewing machine. But when he considered what his invention might do to the jobs of hand seamstresses, he destroyed it. Long before that, the followers of King Lud in England attacked the new textile machinery and burned out the factories. We have since learned that technology has been the source of progress, leading in the long run to more jobs and better jobs. We live, though, in the short run. Not in the future, but now. Men and women dispossessed, displaced by machines. Persons without skill in a world with no use for the unskilled. Persons without an education in an economy where education is the basic job count. Persons against whom the prejudices of society have been leveled. Men and women in places where change found a bypass. If problems of the immigrant and the woman worker and the child laborer and the returning veteran and the apprentice were the basic concerns of the Department of Labor in earlier times, today the waste of millions of human talents is a central challenge. In 1962, the Congress passed the Manpower Development and Training Act, the first significant manpower legislation in the nation's history since the Employment Act of 1946. Designed primarily to meet the needs of the unskilled unemployed, the Act provides for testing and selection of trainees for education in usable skills, for the payment of allowances, and placement in jobs. As administrator of the Act, the Department of Labor also reports to the President on manpower requirements, resources, use, and training, and the President reports to the Congress. The balance sheet on the human side of the economy, the plus and minus of a labor force of millions of individuals. For the first time, we have an adequate measure of our most important resource, its potential, and its future. Change has also brought new challenges to one of our free society's most valued institutions, the bargaining table. The representatives of labor, faced with growing automation, are not liable to bargain away their members' jobs. Across the table, the management representative, faced with stiffening competition and changing markets, is not liable to bargain away the efficiency that might make a difference between profit and loss. The Department of Labor helps prevent final stalemate by offering both parties technical services, objective facts, employment and labor force projections, examples of how it's being done elsewhere, ideas on which to base a discussion and, hopefully, an understanding. Since 1959, the department has administered and enforced a law requiring labor organizations and labor consultants to report on their financial transactions, and that also guarantees democratic procedures. Special surveys of labor markets help determine their eligibility for federal assistance under the Area Redevelopment Act. Workers who lose their jobs because of the nation's new free trade policies obtain retraining help through the Department of Labor and other agencies. As the world is knitted closer together, free men face the necessity of choice, and of choice exercised under pressure. The razor edge of technology prunes away traditional livelihoods at a time when unprecedented numbers of persons seek jobs. Labor and management relations that have grown firm on past agreements over wages and hours and fringe benefits crack over the problem of obsolete workers. But it is more than this. It is a problem of values, of faith, as well as works. Equality is first a democratic ideal, and then an economic necessity. Full employment is not only an expression of maximum efficiency in an economic system. It is characteristic of a society that believes each individual is a proper measure for the success of all. Throughout its more than 50 years, the Department of Labor has been served by thousands of men and women who have shared the belief that America the Beautiful can be more than the title of a song. The inventory has come a long way from a bay horse named Mike and a stack of books. But the attitude hasn't changed, nor has the name of the job: to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the United States. Having known change and helped make it, the Department of Labor does not find in change a stranger nor an enemy. It is rather another name for opportunity.